Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of RecruitMilitary Live, a continuing series of live broadcasts covering all things military transition, veteran employment, mil-spouse employment, and much, much more. My name is Lucas Conley, a retired U.S. Army officer and former TAP program manager, here to dive into the deep sea of confusion that possibly surrounds your transition. I'm going to show you a little bit about finances today and some of the ins and outs that you'll need to understand as you make that move, that big shift from the military into the civilian world of employment. Now, if you're in search of meaningful employment, well, you're in the right place. Please visit rmvets.com/live to learn more. Okay, let's roll into today's show. Are you thinking of leaving the military? Are you about to retire? Do you have some concerns about being financially secure in this next phase of your life? Well, if you've answered yes to any of these, well, then you're in the right place, so don't touch that mouse. Today's guest is a certified financial advisor who works closely with active duty service members, transitioning service members, retirees, veterans, and mil-spouses alike to help them plan for their financial future. He wants you to be confident with your finances by implementing a strategy for your investments that won't leave you feeling anxious. I think we can all appreciate that. He takes his passion to the next level by hosting a monthly forum called Transition 30, wherein he brings together subject matter experts in military transitions, employment, VA benefits, insurance, retirement planning, and much, much more. You're going to hear some great advice for him today about some of the decisions you need to make as you head into that next phase of your life. And if you stick around at the end of the show, he's going to tell you how you can reach out to him for a free 30-minute financial consultation. And we do like free. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Todd Nelson. Todd, welcome to the show.
Lucas, thank you. I appreciate it. Looking forward to hearing if there's anything. You were on our Transition 30 call last week.
Loved it.
It was great having you on, and looking forward to having you on again. And love what you're doing there, and it's a great fit for what we do at Transition 30 as well. So
I thought the Transition 30 experience was fantastic. It could have been Transition 60, and I would have been loving it right up to the end.
Yeah, it is not monthly. It's actually bi-monthly, but
bi-monthly.
No, that's perfectly fine. Our next one is October. I'm sure we'll have a chance to tell you a little bit more about that. But it is a free resource that I hope if you are in transition that you'll take advantage of it. It's a great resource. Lots of SMEs on there that give their time, and some of the most knowledgeable out there. And that's what we try to do, is pull them in. So that's why we had you on, Lucas. So,
all right. Well, fantastic. Somebody out there thinks I'm an expert at something. All right. What was it Groucho Marx said? I wouldn't want to join a club that would have me as a member.
Right.
All right.
Exactly.
A tip of the hat to the classic comedian. All right, folks. Now that you know who we are, we'd love to hear who you are. Where are you from? Where are you watching us from? Who are you with? Who do you represent? Are you active duty? Are you in transition? Are you a veteran? U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force, Coast Guard. Let us know who you are and what your status is. If you've got questions, comments, issues, and concerns, please feel free to jump into the chat box and share them with us. Time allowing, we will get to them. All right, Todd, just about anybody that goes through a transition has to attend some kind of a financial planning, financial advisory, some kind of class. They generally get the same advice. Pay down your high interest debt. Don't borrow more than you can pay. Make your payments on time for anything, keep 3 to 6 months household expenses, create a post-transition budget that you can actually live with. But today, if I understand correctly, we're going to get into some specifics about some decisions transitioning service members need to make as they hit the door. Some of the things that don't necessarily get covered in those other programs.
Yeah, absolutely. And so here, here's the thing, Lucas. I'm not a veteran myself, and so it's kind of an interesting dilemma that I have because I had to quickly learn acronyms and all of those things. But now that I've been working in the space, what I'm hearing is your TAP class, for instance. Mm-hmm. What you end up having is, hey, you need to bring a budget to class. And literally, I've had service members talk about that they bring a sheet of paper and it says budget at the top, nothing underneath it. And the TAP instructor says, okay, you got your budget. Checks the box.
I think I could stick to that. I can follow that budget.
That's it. Anybody can follow that budget. So the point that we try to bring into Transition 30, but specifically for what I do on the financial side, is it's just talk about it. What if you had an after action report 18 months after you've transitioned of things that you would have loved to have known while you're going through it. And the fact of the matter is, I've had hundreds of conversations now with transitioning service members, and every time I talk to them one-on-one, I ask them, "What would you say? What would you say if you were 18 months ago and you are going through transition?" And so I have a lot of that information that I try to share. I'm a minister, and so I just try to do a pay forward as much as I can. I work for a for-profit company, so I can't, I can't give everything away for free. I still got to provide for my family. But that's the whole point that we're trying to accomplish here. Is TAP is great for what it is, but it's very difficult when you've got a 4 and out versus a lifer. And how do you give that information? It literally isn't impossible. And as a former TAP instructor, it's not possible. And so we want to give some more details, some things that you really want to start to watch out for as you transition.
Well, I'll tell you, Todd, if I did an AAR of my transition, my evaluator would probably recommend a relief for cause. Learn by failing was my model. All right, Todd, let's tackle topic number 1, insurance. All right, the one thing that we often hope we never have to use ever. What do transitioning service members need to know when they have to start making decisions about SGLI, about VGLI, about private insurance?
Absolutely.
Help us understand.
Yeah, it really is, Lucas. It's a two-edged sword, right? Because SGLI is a great benefit. And a lot of times you don't even pay attention to it when you're active duty. But as you're transitioning, then you have some choices. You can go to VGLI, which of course the military has provided for a reason, right? You're in the military. There's a chance that you're going to get banged up and all of that. So that's why VGLI, it's a huge benefit. There's lots of folks out there that try to downplay its importance or try to talk negatively about it. Why? Because they're life insurance salesmen. So and I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not one of those guys that tries to sugarcoat and whatever. I'm trying to tell you what you're going to run into. Do I offer life insurance? Yes. But what my point is that I want to give you all of the education that you need. And so when it comes to SGLI and VGLI, you need to know that start your VA evaluations, for instance. Start those early. I just talked to somebody yesterday, and they said, "Todd, I'm in the middle of transition." I think he's like an 06, so has had a very successful career. But he said, what I would tell people is 1 to 3 years out, start getting your VA records together. If you think you're going to transition, start getting them together. Here's the double-edged sword. The more that you start to document what has happened, and you need to, I'm not discouraging that at all. But once you start to document that what has happened to you in service in order to get your VA rating up, which it's your money. If you don't go after it, it's just going to be left on the table. It can then preclude you or exclude you from private life insurance. So there's a window that you want to be aware of. Make sure that you put one before the other to make sure that you can still get a good VA evaluation. And if you want private life insurance, that you've already started to apply before that becomes part of your permanent medical record.
That makes sense. It makes absolute sense. It's not going to serve you, well if you leave this to the last minute, and then what you're bringing to the insurance company is a medical record this thick that says that you're 1 foot in the grave. So
and I do have some numbers that I wanted on that particular point that I want to give you for your the members that are on. This is why it's important. So when you're in your 30s, and I took this off of the VA Gov website as far as ratings for VGLI. So if you're 30 to 34, you're going to pay $36 a month for $400,000 in coverage. Now, it's not bad at all. And so especially if you're 4 and out, 8 and out, whatever the case may be, you may not realize the importance of looking into the difference between private and just doing the BGLI. But by the time you're 50 to 54, that's went up to $132 a month, which still isn't outrageous. But the point is that every 5 years that starts to cycle through. And by the time you're 60, you're paying, I think it was like $588 a month. And now it becomes really, really expensive comparatively. And you have a cap of 400,000. What happens if now your lifestyle has changed? You have more that you need to cover. And because you didn't think ahead of time, I just had an individual that 13 years being medically boarded, he never thought about life insurance until now he has to. So just think that through before you get to the place where you have to make a decision, because your window may have closed and you didn't even realize it.
And not just the question of whether or not you need insurance, but how much.
Yep.
Because what do they say, in that middle part of your life where you have a lot of dependents, you need more than when you were young and single. And then it's kind of on a bell curve. Middle part of the life, you need more insurance to, if there's a tragedy, account for the loss of income, that your income is gone, and then it trails off. Am I explaining this right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of different ways to explain it, but yes. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions, Lucas, when it comes to life insurance is it's not meant to put your spouse in a position where they never have to work again.
Right.
I mean, if you want to have that, you can, or possibly you might be able to, but it's a much stricter underwriting, because now you're talking $4 or $5 million and, all of those things. And honestly, most people are going to continue on with life. So life insurance is meant to be, hey, if you've got young kids, a 7 to 10 year window, let's say, where your spouse is able to replace your income, get your kids through school. It's just one scenario, or get some more education or whatever the case may be that they need it for, and then continue on with their life. It's not meant to be, hey, you're gone, I never have to work another day in your life. That's a kind of a perception.
I think it boils down to achieving your joint financial goals.
Yep.
In your absence.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so there's a lot there's a simple way of saying, hey, take 7 to 10 years of what your anticipated income, whatever that amount be. If you need 50,000 and 7 to 10 years, so you need 350 to 500,000 when it comes to life insurance. So that's a really, really simple way of doing it. And that may be adequate for what you need, but there's also some more sophisticated ways that we have of kind of diving into that and making sure that it is adequate and you're not underinsured.
Yeah, and I actually recently did the back of the napkin math on my own life. 3 kids, all I want to send to college, a $200,000 house note, 2 car payments to clear, and I came in around $375, something like that.
Sure.
So, and that is much more than I thought it was going to come out to. So something to look at for everybody out there. Absolutely. If you haven't done the math yet. Okay, next topic, right? During the process of transition out of the military, one of the stops we have to make is typically a transition services office or retirement services office. And then they come in and they ask us a question about SBP, Survivor Benefit Plan. With 1,000 other things going on and a stack of papers in your hand, you're asked to opt in or opt out. Can you give us a quick breakdown? What's the decision-making process? What are the factors that go into that decision as to whether to check the box or not check the box?
Yeah. So this is a great question, Lucas. And the fact of the matter is, again, be selective in who you are following, like on LinkedIn or Facebook, because this is a very controversial subject for some people, because they're trying to get you to opt out. Now, you don't have to really make a decision on SBP if you're going to stay in. You're automatically opted in. To opt out, you have to have your spouse and notarize things and all of that. What they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to opt out because they want you to take what you would have paid and they want you to put it towards, say, a life insurance product, and for some that might be a good solution. It might. But there's no cookie cutter answer. And so for instance, if you're, I just pulled a couple of numbers. So let's say you're a 38-year-old, you're 20 years in, you're E7 in the Army, your pension is going to be about 27.8-ish, somewhere
Sounds
in there.
about right.
And you pulled that off of militarypay.defense.gov. And so you just, whatever your rank is, that's going to be kind of how that figures. But typically it's going to figure out to be 6.5% of that is going to be your SBP premium. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
So if you're that E7, 27,000, you're going to pay about a little over $1,800 a year in premium. Okay. Now that will continue to go up because your pension with your cost of living adjustments is going to continue to go up. That 6.5% stays the same. It's just now you're paying on more and more.
On a larger figure.
Right. So even if that wasn't the case, the thing about SBP that most like private life insurance people don't want you to know is once you paid in 30 years, those premiums cease. So that's what they don't want you to know, because they want you to think that, well, man, you're going to continue to pay premiums and, for life and, all of that. However, that still means that you're going to pay over $54,000 in premiums. Now, Lucas, I don't know about you, but I don't have $54,000 to just say, oh man, no, that's no big deal.
You can lend it to me. I'll give you 5 points on it.
Right. So, it's a decision that most people, because they don't realize quite how weighty of a decision it is or how the expenses involved, they just don't even put the time and energy into thinking about it. And so that's all I'm trying to encourage you on when it comes to SBP. One of the downsides is, let's say your spouse, you're 29 years into paying premiums and your spouse predeceases you. If you look on the SBP website, it tells you there are no benefits. You don't get any return of premium. It's just like a life insurance premium, except on the life insurance, when you die within that period of time, say you have term, well, you are going to get paid out. It may not go to your spouse. It may go to your children or whatever the case is. That's a downside. And that's something that a lot of people that are against SBP, that's what they bring up. And it's a valid point, right? I mean, who wants to put in $50,000 and then have it just evaporate? Exactly. Now, what a lot of folks, though, then in favor, and of course, I've got some great connections on LinkedIn that they are in favor of SBP. Like one of my clients, Lucas, their decision was it made their spouse, after 20 plus years in the military, made them sleep better at night, knowing that, hey, if something were to happen, you get 55% of that pension. And that was the only decision they had to make. That's okay. It boils down to your genetics, how predisposed are you to die early? What's your medical history? What's your wife's medical history or your husband's medical history? Those are things that need to be considered in the SBP discussion. And don't just go based off of, a buddy of mine said not to do it, or a buddy of mine said to do it. It's too big of a decision to just say, we'll cross that, check that box or uncheck that box when we get to it. You need to run the numbers for you and your family before you get to out processing.
All right. Big takeaway here. Run the numbers before you check the box.
That's it.
All right.
That's exactly it.
BAS and BAH. I think we all know that goes away. It is correct me if I'm wrong, untaxed benefit during the military, and it's oftentimes a very large sum depending on where you live. Conversely, when a transitioning service member, particularly retirees, get ready to look forward to receiving a correction, when you get out, it stops. All right, a portion of your income that was not taxed before is now, assuming you match that income when you get out, is now going to be taxed. Say you retire, now you're going to receive potentially a pension and potentially a disability rating. You used to have this pot of money that was not taxed. Now you're going to get this other pot of money from a different sector of the government, is taxed. There's a lot of tax issues here, concerns. what do the transitioning service members and retirees need to know about their changes in their income and the tax burden that it carries, so that at the end of the year, they're not stuck writing a very large check to the government?
Yeah, absolutely. And Lucas, here's the thing. Uh, so looking from the outside in at service members, I realize part of the disconnect when you go to TAP or whatever the case may be is you're used to somebody above you telling you this is what you need to do. And if I can come say anything to the service members on the call, is make sure you understand it's not their job to dig into your personal finances. It's your transition, and if you don't run some of these numbers, we're going to go back to that. If you don't dig into that, for instance, exactly what you said, your BAH, your BAS, those things go away. All of a sudden, that's going to be more of a tax. As a minister, the one thing that I share with military is we're the only two professions that get a housing allowance, a BAH. And so I understand when I transitioned out of full-time ministry, what that did, though, to my income was significant, because that's now income that is added back into your normal taxable income. So now you have a pension. And I just heard this story that they were being out processed, and they said, "What do you want withholding?" Well, and the counselor said, typically it's 10%. So they just check the 10%. Well, the difficulty is that you're unless you're only making like $12,000 a year, your minimum bracket is 12%. And married filing jointly, I believe I just looked at it before it came in. It's like 87,000. With your pension, now your spouse is working, you're probably very easily going to surpass the 87,000, which jumps you up to 22%. And now you've checked the box. This next year, I want to make sure that you're only withholding 10% on my pension.
And now you're 12% in the hole.
You're 12% in the hole every paycheck you get, and you are blissfully ignorant until the tax preparer says you owe $8,000, and you're not prepared for it. So
you're thinking it's the end of the year, you're going to get a new firearm and a whole big bag of ammo, and you're going to go, it's time to go hunting.
That's
and
it.
I was like, well, I owe what?
Yeah,
I owe what?
Yep, 100%. So it is definitely, again, it is a simple box. And if you're not prepared, they will say, what do you want to put? This is typically what we would put. And you could end up being thousands of dollars in a charge down the road that you're just probably not prepared for.
All right. Good. Once again, watch yourself. You're in a rush to get transitioned out. A lot of paperwork to fill out. Think about these things before you check the box.
Yep.
All right. Let's jump forward. In my experience as a TAP counselor, I'd say that filing a disability claim, particularly a BDD, was fairly common. Having served, at a unit that had a light infantry division, the mighty 10th Mountain Division, it can wear on the body. Let's just say that. So just about everybody who walked through my door was filing a BDD of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
What do our transitioning service members need to understand about the financial benefits of a VA disability rating outside of just knowing it's a check every month?
Yep. It is remarkable to me. I still see folks, service members that I'm connected with, especially like on LinkedIn or whatever, talking about, I'm not hurt that bad. It's going to take away from somebody else, and somebody that was came out profoundly affected because of their service. That money needs to go to them. That's just simply not how it works. That money is set aside by the VA for you, and if you choose not to pursue it, that is money literally that you're leaving on the table. So let's take it one step further and take it outside of just, because I think the idea is, well, I served my country because I wanted to,
the selfless service.
Exactly. And that's the part that I love working with service members, is that idea. And so they think it's a little bit of maybe greedy, that, man, you shouldn't be paying me for something that I willingly signed up for, and whatever the case may be. But let's just put it this way. What if you're trying to buy a brand new house or a new house that your family's moving into, and you haven't went through the BDD process? You haven't done any of your VA evals because it's for somebody else. A 10%, Lucas, a 10% rating minimum is all that's required in order to get the VA funding fee, which is thousands and thousands of dollars waived. So if nothing else, make it cheaper for your family to be able to afford your next house or your first house, whatever the case may be. Make it cheaper because you are doing what is right for your family. And whenever I hear somebody retire, I always make sure that I let them know, listen, thank you, service member, but thanks to your family too, because there's a lot of sacrifice that has went on over the years to get you to that place, especially if you're 20 plus. So give your family the value of going through that process, even if it's just to get the 10%, just to save those thousands of dollars on the VA funding fee. So,
and you know what? If you're in a civilian workplace, you fall off a ladder and break both your legs, you're going to get compensated.
Absolutely.
The military is a contact sport.
Yeah.
If you contributed in any significant way to the military mission and you came out on the backside of it with something that doesn't feel right, let the VA, and not to mention that if it's VA compensated and your regular insurance doesn't cover it, it's VA covered, right? Am I right?
Yep.
For life. And if it gets worse, that's covered too.
Yeah.
Okay, so smart decision. Admire the selfless service out there. Admire all the folks that say, hey, I'm fine. Don't do it. Be smart. Be smarter than that. Take it. Okay? Take what you've earned. Take what you wrote. Yeah. All right. TSP. Most of us, when we're in the military, we saw a few bucks come out of our account every month. It disappeared. When you get towards the end and you're coming up on getting that beautiful DD-214, you have a decision to make. What do I do with the TSP money? Todd, what do you recommend?
Yeah. So this is another great conversation that most folks, because I can't tell you how many times, Lucas, I hear, my counselor going in said, put it all in G fund. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they're probably a little bit more disturbed by how little it has grown over the years because they did just put it in G fund. But it's bigger than, well, do I move it into my new employer? Most 401k plans allow you to move it into, if you get employed civilian sector, you can move that TSP into their 401k plan. You can leave it there. You can't contribute anymore, but you can leave it there. And here's some things that you need to consider. And again, it goes back to put as much time. The reason the transition 30 that I talk about, most of the reason that people get on there is for people like you, Lucas. Help me find a new job. Help me find the next job. And they put a ton of time into networking and getting certifications and nothing wrong with that. But then when it comes to their financial side of things, they don't plan at all. They're just, it'll all just
work itself out.
And so that's the whole point today is it won't work itself out. If you haven't put as much planning into career as you are finances, you're probably going to find yourself costing a bunch of money. And so, for instance, TSP allows loans.
Did not know that.
They do, and I believe it's up to 50,000, and then you have to set up. They charge a certain interest rate. It's a loan, but essentially, it's your money that you're taking out a loan. When you separate, when you retire, if you have a loan and it is still outstanding within 90 days, that will become due and payable. And I just had a client that this happened to, and it is a real scenario. They didn't realize that they didn't have the ability to repay, say, $50,000 within 90 days. Very few of us have the ability to just, pull funds like that. So the TSP says, that's okay. We're going to go ahead though, and we're going to count that as a distribution to you which means that you're going to get a 10% tax penalty because you took it out prior to 59 and a half. And you're going to pay your ordinary income tax, which again goes back to you've checked your 10% tax withholding. Your income's way up, and now you add in, say, a $50,000 distribution. You could easily be paying 10 to 15 to on say a $50,000 loan, an $18,000 penalty in tax on something that all you did was retire.
Yeah.
And so just be aware. And there's another thing on the TSP that we can talk about, but that's something that not everybody knows, like you, that you can take a loan. But if you have taken a loan, be very aware of their timelines on getting that repaid.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's like almost like a magic trick. Like, how do you turn $50,000 into 22? Take a TSP disbursement.
That, and yeah, it is a lot. And so the other thing that I think makes a lot of sense to talk about is like I have a couple, both TSP, and they've kept it. They're close to 70. So this isn't something that the average person thinks about, but I do want to bring it down to, let's say you're in your mid 30s or you're 20 plus and you're retiring, and you have TSP. There's nothing wrong with keeping it there, but here's something you need to consider. If you were to die, and let's say you and your spouse were to die in a car crash, God forbid, so that happens, and it's kept in the TSP. What people don't realize is that would transfer, assuming you have your beneficiary set up. That would all happen very, very painlessly. It would go to your beneficiaries, but it would have to go in the year that the death happened. And so, like for instance, let's say you have grown adult children and they're making $200,000 a year, and like this couple, they got $800,000 between the two of them. Immediately, they have two sons. That becomes a $400,000 income in that year to each of their sons, which means in that year, the IRS says you made $600,000, which jumps them up into the highest tax bracket. And now they're going to be paying, close to currently, I think it's like 38% on what you worked really, really hard to get. And because you didn't realize that was a ramification. Now, again, it's a unique scenario. My job is not to instill fear. My job is to say, hey, this could happen. So it's just something to think about when it comes to your TSP. That's why sometimes people want to move it into like their own personal IRA account, simply because what that does then is now you can stretch that distribution. Same scenario happens. Each of your heirs, they can say, hey, like I'm going to take 10 years, a maximum of 10 years. And
Makes
now
sense.
I'm going to stretch it out over $40,000 a year in income. May not bump you up to the next tax bracket like 400,000 would. So,
okay. All right. All good stuff. All good advice. I hope our audience is taking notes. Coming down to the tail end of the show, Todd, imagine for a second you are on an elevator, for example. If you got 30 seconds to talk with a transitioning service member, someone who's about to retire, it's almost, you're almost to your floor. You had an opportunity to give them one piece of advice only. What would it be?
Plan as much on the financial side as you are for your career transition to the next career. Plain and simple. Lots of different factors weigh into it. But if I had to give you 30 seconds, that's exactly it. Start planning early. All the things about the 3 to 6 months, great information. Don't anticipate though that like your VA payments are going to start immediately. I'm hearing some that are 6 months out and they still don't have their VA payments. So if you're focusing on everything's going to go seamlessly, have a contingency plan.
And Todd, you've talked to us about Transition 30. I hope we bring in more viewers the next time around and talking about planning. If you need a little help, if our audience needs a little bit of help and they want to get a free 30-minute consultation with Mr. Nelson, how do they do that?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to give you my email address. I'm going to give you my phone number, my office number here. Find me on LinkedIn. All my contact information is on there. I think it's like Todd-Nelson Edward-Jones, and that will pull me up. My office number 615. I'm here in the Nashville area, 302-2488, or reach out to me on email. Because here's the thing, when you are transitioning, there is very much so such a thing as making now too much money. And that takes you into a whole different realm. So reach out to me, Todd.Nelson, Nelson, at edwardjones.com. Happy to help you. I do have a pay it forward approach as much as I can to help you without there being a charge. That's what I try to do for you.
Fantastic. And Todd, absolutely great, fantastic of you to do this on your own time and free of charge. We like free. Anything we can get for free, we take. All right. And you know what else is free, folks? If you haven't already done so, go to www.recruitmilitary.com. That's free too. An opportunity for you to identify over 400,000 job opportunities from 6,000 employers. Recruit Military is on a mission to help veterans, transitioning service members, and mil spouses find meaningful employment opportunities. On behalf of Recruit Military and the folks that joined us today, Todd, thanks for being on the show.
Lucas, thank you so much, man.
And be sure, all you folks out there in internet land, to tune in next week. We'll be hosting the U.S. Navy's own Arabia Shanklin, who is going to be talking with us about the value of mentorship, both in uniform and out. Until then, this has been Lucas Connolly for Recruit Military Live. Good luck and Godspeed.